morning, peeps. It's Friday, November 19th, 2021. The reason was this video, me and my oldest daughter had a discussion about, the differences of me growing up in my generation in school, and the difference in what the kids in school nowadays are growing up. I mean, it makes you really, it comes to realization there's a lot of things that change. There's a lot of, you don't think about it, you think, this generation growing up is a whole lot easier, but if you really think about it, technically it's not, because they're putting a lot of stress on these kids about all these tests and doing good. We had this whole 20-30 minute conversation about it. It all boiled down to technologies today versus technology then, because of social media. Harassment's a little different, because now you have, if somebody spreads something about you on social media, I mean, it's there. I mean, you see it all the time. Whereas if somebody spread rumors about you, when I was growing up, the only time you really heard about it was at school or in the neighborhood. It wasn't in your hand. And all the tests that they have to take now, and the stress, and how the government has really, they haven't spread the wealth evenly among the United States. They're spending money all over the world, but they're not really invested in the United States like they should. So the funding for a lot of schools has become lax, because they put a lot of restrictions on how much money these schools get, and what they have to go through to get that money. And that dropped her off. We had a great, good conversation. I'm really proud of my kids. They got a very level-headed shoulder on their heads, and they're very level-headed. I mean, we try to, it's like I told my mom yesterday. She was all, worried about, well, what do you teach your kids, and blah blah blah. Do they go to church? I'm like, no, they don't go to church. I mean, I don't, because of my upbringing and what I went through at a particular church, I look at church differently. I don't want to go to church. I believe being where I was in the church that my mom was involved with. Now my mom's not involved with it anymore, and neither am I, but when she was involved with it, let me put it this way, it put a bad taste in my mouth. I just think all churches are scams, but granted, all churches may not be, but you may have a church that you really like, and that's fine. I just don't think the church is worth it. I mean, you can have church basically in your own home if you want to. So if I want to sit and read the Bible, or if I want to just have a discussion about the Bible, I'll just sit in my house. Because I don't, and that's another thing. The scriptures has become so muddled that you go to one church and they'll take one set of scriptures and they'll say this is what it means. And you take that same scripture and you go to a different church and a different pastor, and they it's a totally different. They muddle it down to what they want to tell you or what you want to hear, and I'm not all into that. I believe that the scriptures is plain as day. It is what it is. It says what it says. You can take it or leave it. And some of these pastors and how they do it. Anyway, that's a different story. But I told my mom that me and my wife Jamie, we tried to have a conversation with our kids, regardless of what the subject is. We sit and talk to our kids. We tell them all our thoughts and feelings, and we listen to their thoughts and feelings. And that's the way we do, and it's been working. Both my kids got a very level head on the shoulders, so we're gonna leave it like that. So I love, our kids are very smart, and hopefully they stay that way. But anyway, I have Sirius XM radio, so I have a list of 20-something channels I listen to, and I like all kind of music, so it ranges from rock and roll, rap, hip hop, R&B, country, 80s music, 90s music, 2000s rock and roll, and 60s music. And it just happened to have it on the 60s channel. And there's a song by Zager and Evans. It's called In the Year 2525, and I don't think I've ever heard of the song, but I listened to it because I listened to the words of the song because it's talking about, basically what's going on now. I mean, it's a fear that we all have, saying, in the year 2525, you may not be married, you may not have a wife. Talk about, your arms will go limp and your legs go limp, and you'll have something else doing the work for you. And there was another one. Talking about you don't have to, you won't have a husband, you won't have a wife, you choose your child out of a tube. And I mean, just listen. It's an old song, obviously, it's the 60s, but it's really, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I guess when that song was actually written, it probably was a little, way out there freakish, like, oh my God, that's just a strange song. But now, listening to it now, I mean, that's freaking scary. I mean, because you can see it kind of moving that way in the words that he's talking about, in the lyrics of the song. Thinking about what's going on today, I mean, it's moving in that direction. That's freaking scary, man. Talk about, okay, well, what is it, 95 or 95:10 or whatever it is, God comes down and says, I'm done with man, I'm going to wipe it out and do it again, which is, it's going, according to Revelation, it's going to happen anyway, but just listen to the song. The song is Zager, I don't know how to say the guy's name, Zager and Evans. And the title of the song is In the Year 2525. And I don't know when the song was actually released. It was on the 60s channel, so it was probably sometime in the 60s. But it's kind of freaky because you can see it moving in that direction. Maybe not as much in the time the song was written, but now. scary, man. Basically saying that the human race is useless. Will eventually become useless. We're just here. We're taking in air. And it's... I bet you that Zacher and Evans, or if they wrote it, I don't know who actually wrote the song. I don't know if they did or somebody else wrote it for them. But I've never heard them because I never heard of them. I'm sorry, I was born in '74. So I've never heard of the song, and I've never heard of them. I mean, I like all genres of songs, and that's the reason why I have the 60s channel on my Sirius XM, because there's some songs in the 60s that I do like, and I have heard of, but I've never heard of this song until today. But anyway.